Well, it is that time once again for classic series incarnations of the Doctor to face off against new series creations. As in today's Big Finish audio drama review, I'm going to be taking a look at the third volume of the classic Doctor's New Monsters Doctor Who series. This box set is available to order now via the Big Finish website in both physical CD and digital download formats. Now this is in fact a rather interesting box set because within volumes 1 and 2 of this series, we've seen the most notable new series creations going up against the classic series Doctors. This box set is required to dig a little bit deeper into the new series characters to create some monsters and bring them to life within the audio drama format, and there's certainly characters that I think don't exactly spring to mind when it comes to new series Doctor Who creations, usually being monsters from rather obscure stories, so I was rather intrigued to see how this box set was going to work. So we start off this box set with the house that Moxx built. Now this is a rather boundary-breaking story between a very tiny link to new series Doctor Who, whilst also blossoming into an entirely new narrative, which to me was always what the end of the world intended. I personally love the New Earth-themed stories of series 1, 2, 3 and 4 of Doctor Who, as each tiny side character appeared to have a background, a planet and occupation, which truly brings the narrative's location to life. The same can be said for this story as we are introduced to the moxx of Balhoon's brother, the Hox of Balhoon. The story follows a rather similar setting to that of the End of the World, where we are in the Earth's distant future. However, not quite to the extent of the Earth exploding just yet, but the planet is pretty much inhabitable, where there's lots of thunderstorms, the tectonic plates have moved. However, one of the things that is left remaining is a traditional country house. The moxx of Balhoon is a solicitor for Jalko and Jalko, but the Hox of Balhoon, the main focus of the story, is in fact a character who is focused around learning about Earth's history and what happened in the past. He's accompanied by Francesca, the half-human sheep. The bond that they have feels incredibly genuine, but also quite lonely, being in this sad little world together, with only their glitching robot butler for company. Whilst Francesca dreams of seeing how humanity has expanded out into space, the Hox of Balhoon is a little bit more focused on the miserable, deathly past. Tim Foley is an absolute tour de force at Big Finish. Every time I see his writing credit, I can't wait to hear what he has in store, offering hilarious plots, emotional hard-hitting tales, and this time we have a traditional ghost story. Big Finish are incredibly lucky to have him. It's clear that he loves Doctor Who, and this story, much like many of his episodes, is packed with references to both new series and classic series Doctor Who. It's a great story to sit back to and relax, and is perfect for a new audio drama listener. One of the nice novelties of this episode is that it is also a Third Doctor and Sarah Jane story. We have Tim Treloar coming in as the recast Third Doctor. I like the fact that this box set offers a glimpse into this new take on the Third Doctor, as it means that people who are intrigued by this incarnation can purchase this box set rather than risking an entire Third Doctor box set as a part of that respective series, which does have a rather hefty price tag of around £24 at recommended retail, which is in fact quite a big risk if you are somebody who is already a little bit cautious, but this box set allows you to have the Third Doctor alongside other classic series Doctors as well, making it a kind of safer purchase. I really do like Tim Treloar's portrayal. I've only listened to a few of the episodes with him in, however I really do like his performance. I think he really captures that warmth for adventure that the Third Doctor has, and you can almost hear that glint in his eye. But equally we also have Sadie Miller, of course Elizabeth Sladen's daughter, coming in as the recast Sarah Jane, and again I've listened to a number of her outings so far, not really too many of them, but I really like what she's so far provided to Big Finish. I think her performance is really authentic, really warm once again, and really captures that relationship between the Third Doctor and Sarah Jane. I think that the fact that the Third Doctor is included within this episode is also very exciting, because now we have that potential to maybe even see classic Doctor's New Monsters stories with the likes of the First and Second Doctors, and there's something about the First Doctor meeting a new series creation that personally I find quite exciting. So overall, for the first episode within this set, I think it is a considerably enjoyable listen, with some great references to both new and classic series Doctor Who, but also a fun mystery. Each scene contributes to the narrative, and it keeps you guessing all the way until the final act. What makes this volume of Classic Doctor's New Monsters exciting is that Big Finish have now used up the obvious inclusions, the Weeping Angels, the Jadoon, the Vashta-Nerada, requiring them to effectively dig deeper into new series canon to find the less obvious stories. The Tavolian Who Knew Too Much is a perfect example of this done brilliantly. Robert Valentine captures the interesting culture of Tavolia, a race of which that were born to be submissive and ruled over. So when the Fourth Doctor and Leela find their holiday in Rome interrupted by Tavolian on the run with a gang hot in pursuit, you know you're in for a dramatic, fast-paced story. The Tavolians are superbly captured through the character of Timble Phoebus, an always anxious, stressed individual who is in desperate need of a holiday. I certainly relate to him. He makes for an excellent companion alongside the loud and excitable Fourth Doctor. I could honestly listen to them squabbling politely for hours. The plot is quite an interesting one, with a criminal on the run and a Tavolia not under another planet's control. The inhabitants are desperate for new overlords, but it's soon apparent that the Doctor, Leela and Timble must stop a deal to enslave the planet, because unknown to Tavolia, the deal is not what they want. It's something much, much worse. I think that this story really evokes the boldness of Douglas Adams' Doctor Who, but also the great use of location as seen within the likes of the City of Death. It's a great story to visualise within the mind whilst listening along, with that brilliant mix of humorous moments and ultimately actually a very serious evil gang plot in the centre. My one criticism for this story, we do have the excellent Louise Jameson as Leela, and I'm getting from this narrative that she's still in her early adventures with the Doctor because she's still a little bit unsure about time travel. I'm certainly getting the vibe that this is the Leela that we've seen within the TV series within her early adventures rather than a later, more experienced version of Leela. But what I like within this episode is that she clearly likes Timble Phoebus and what he kind of stands for, and she appreciates the fact that within this story, Timble actually has quite a life journey. He goes from this very shy, timid character, and then he really comes out of his shell within this episode. It really is a nice, warm story for his character to kind of blossom, and subsequently she realises the effort that it takes for him to make these changes to the way that he acts, and she really appreciates that as a result and sees him as incredibly brave. And I think that a few additional scenes within the end of this story, just to explore that a little bit further, would have been really nice. The Sixth Doctor and his companion Mary unite with the Dream Crabs, as previously seen within the 12th Doctor Christmas special, Last Christmas, this time in Together in Eselectic Dreams, as written by Roy Gill. Once more, I think the Dream Crabs aren't exactly the first monster which springs to mind to get a Big Finish return story, but the narrative itself certainly establishes its own little adventure beyond what we got to see on screen. If anything, it does something more exciting with the Dream Crabs, and that also applies to the fourth story within this set as well. Yes, this episode does kind of rely on that whole concept of what is and isn't reality, but it does most crucially avoid that trope like Groundhog Day of waking up over and over again. Personally, I think that this is done incredibly well within the Netflix original series Russian Doll, so this episode would have quite a threshold standard to beat if it was to overcome my personal favourite take on that style of narrative. The Dream Crabs are certainly used in a different way to what I initially expected, seeing them used as a corporate instrument in a sense by an artist that goes by the name of Terra. She's basically developed a new format of listening experience through her music, making it personally tailored to the listener, which I think is in fact really interesting, especially given that we live in an age of these automated devices, the likes of Alexa and Google Assistant and all of that. The soundscape and music for this story is also really creative and therapeutic, making it in fact a rather eerie listen. I certainly don't think that this episode is the quickest story in the world, and it definitely takes a lot of focus to appreciate the smaller details within the plot, and Colin offers a great performance, and to me when 6C is placed alongside other Doctors within a box set, I think that his strength within the audio drama format really starts to shine through when you compare to the performances of the other Doctors. I just think that Colin suits the audio format down to a T. He's an incredibly engaging Doctor. Mary and Sam are also great additions to the story, and out of all the support characters, I think that they certainly stand out the most. Without being too spoilery, I wish we got to see a little bit more of what we've seen within the final act of this story. Perhaps this could have maybe been spliced between the various scenes within the Lethe Institute, and for those of you who haven't listened to this story, you will not have a clue what I'm going on about. However, if you have listened to the episode, hopefully you vaguely understand what I'm meaning, but I just think a little bit of dividing up with the scenes would have made this story flow a little bit better. And now we move on to the fourth and final episode for this box set. Once again, another Dream Crab episode, this time in If I Should Die Before I Wake. It's very odd having a second story within one set to feature the same four, which aren't actually interconnected plots, and again I think that is something vaguely different to what was done within Volume 2 with the Vashta-Nerada, because in that we had two stories with the Vashta-Nerada divided between the fourth and eighth incarnations, but from what I can remember at the top of my head, it was kind of a actions and consequences kind of style of storytelling where we've seen the aftermath within the second story. These two stories, although they do feature the Dream Crabs, are completely different episodes. The Eighth Doctor and Charlie control this story in more ways than one. It's pretty much a two-hander, with India Fisher stepping in for quite a number of the background roles, which at first I didn't in fact realise. Whilst Charlie settles down for the evening, it's time for the Doctor to tell her many adventurous bedtime stories, but unusually they all lead to her demise. From a technical perspective, I think it is in fact rather easy to take this episode for granted, but the way the audio has been used is actually really clever, having the main protagonists living within the moment and the events of the story, whilst also being the story's narrator, which sounds very unusual and quite confusing, but the way that it's been acted by India Fisher and Paul McGann is really creative and works very well. It provides that unusual sense of almost fourth wall breaking, and almost as if the Eighth Doctor and Charlie are writing their own Doctor Who adventure. I really love the way as well at the very beginning of the episode we have the cue of the title sequence actually worked into the story, which is very cool indeed. I previously mentioned within episode 3 about the waking up over and over again from different levels of dream trope, and I do think that this story relies on that technique a little bit more, but it still remains a considerably refreshing story that does something different. Again, because of the way that the episode has been delivered, I think that it is a very visual story, and that has been brought across very well through the dialogue of the main protagonists, and if you are a new listener who wants to experience something a bit more experimental, then this is a story for you. It's also, of course, lovely to see the Eighth Doctor and Charlie back together. They are from the very early years of Big Finish. I must admit, I've still not really delved into many of the Eighth Doctor and Charlie stories, but I do kind of like the dynamic. This episode definitely delivers a consistent relationship and kind of recaptures that vibe from the earlier Big Finish stories, from at least the ones I've personally listened to. As the many myths and fairy tales unfold, as the Doctor attempts to save Charlie from death, as a dream crab encases her face, but it is well known that if you die in a dream, you also die in reality. There is quite a lot at stakes within this story, and I really like that that is brought across within the episode itself. Taking the two dream crab stories together, I certainly don't think that these are bold monsters the like that we see within volumes 1 and 2 of this series, but what Big Finish have done is create some rather exciting ways of representing these characters, if anything more experimental than what we got to see within Last Christmas. So subsequently, I really respect the writing effort to do something different with these creations, because it could have been very easy to do something rather vague and just simple and very much like what we got to see on screen, but at least they try to do something unique. So there we go, that is my review of Classic Doctor's New Monsters Volume 3. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Overall for this box set, I certainly don't think it's as bold as Volumes 1 and 2 from a listening perspective. I think that Volume 1 in particular is kind of the most exciting of the bunch because it has the most variety, but I do respect what this box set does because it essentially takes some of the least known new series creations and tries to do something new with them. So I think that if that is something that interests you, then this is probably a box set that is worth purchasing, but also at the same time, if you are a listener who wishes to experience multiple incarnations of the Doctor whilst only purchasing one box set, then this is also great for you to be able to experience many different areas of Big Finish all at the same time. So thank you very much for watching this review. I really hope you have enjoyed it. Do of course stay tuned on The Host Productions for regular audio drama reviews. Have a nice day. I shall see you all next time.